So continuing on with the use of portraits in photography, like most or really all art history, you have to stop and take a step back and look what's going on in the world uh, around in this case, the photographers. Uh, we can't always just simply focus on the image in front of us. How did this image in front of us get here? Well, really, there's a lot that goes into uh, what the artist is thinking. Why are they doing this? Why is this image a certain way? What's going on? What is the artist trying to show me? In this case, what is the photographer trying to show me? What is the photographer getting at? Um, what's the big picture here? What's the external influences that are going on with the photographer? So in this case, transcendentalism, uh, and really, if you look at art in general, this idea of getting back to nature, rejecting materialism. It's like, yes, the Industrial Revolution is great, but we're becoming these, materialistics. We're becoming products of this environment, and that's not who we are. We are we're different than that. We're better than that. Um, and so if you were to, look at some of the other artwork going on at the time, especially this idea of focusing on nature, some of the romantic painters in Germany and up in England, they really focus on nature. They get into the sublime, the grandeur, the greatness of nature. And so, with Emerson and Whitman and all these other American poet philosopher types, um, that's really where a lot of this ideas are coming from. And that, like I said, these ideas are some of the things that to influence the photographers. So, Southward, getting back to, like I said, who am I? How do I want to be remembered? Who am I really? And I think that's, a question we all sort of stop and ask ourselves, who am I? What is the real me? If I was just to walk into your house, or are you going to be like the family portraits? Is everyone in your house going to be wearing, matching polo shirts and khaki pants, or whatever the outfit that your mom tells you that you have to wear? Is that the real you? Is that who you really are? Uh, and so, Southward trying to get to who he is, getting rid of these materials, sort of literally getting rid of the clothes. The clothes don't really make who I am. And so, kind of another first at this time where you start to get into, uh, in this case, surgery using, ether as anesthesia, um, which that was always kind of, it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. Uh, it's kind of great because it put the patient to sleep to perform the surgery. They wouldn't have to be awake for the surgery like in years past. At the same time, too much ether can kill the patient. So it's like sort of this delicate fine line. So using photography as sort of this educational tool. Getting into medical diagrams and images like that. So now we have this tool to create an image, uh, and in this case, sort of a teaching tool. So the poor calotype. Um, Again, it just was not as popular. So yeah, we mainly been looking at Daguerre. I said Daguerre was a ruthless businessman. He would sort of go through any and all means to keep uh, his process at the forefront. You know, much like Hercules Flores when he was announcing his method to the world. Daguerre found out, got over to down to Brazil to show the emperor of Brazil. It's like, oh yeah, your guy did this, but here's what I have. Mine's better. So um, it sort of falls to the wayside and not as popular. Daguerre really marketed his process, even though the calotype, that can using an actual negative. Just not it's like so the chemistry and all of that. It's not necessarily there for the calotype. So the disruption by Hill and Adamson, it becomes important. It's essentially this meeting of all the bishops and archbishops, uh, all the deciding people of the church up in Scotland. So the idea, that you would record this image, of this event, even though they were not all there at the same time, so that they rely on photographs so that all these people can be here all at the same time, in this painting. So the painting is relying on photographs of all the different archbishops and bishops, everyone that has the deciding vote in this. Uh, they were photographed, and the painting was composed from all these different photographs being put together. So here's an image of one of the excuse me, one of the bishops that would be seen in the photograph. So here the photographers and painters, understanding sort of, where this person would be within the photograph, so they kind of get some poses, in this case, hand on the Bible, the other hand kind of outreaching. Um, so they're posing him, specifically for his role within the painting. And so again, Hill and Adamson, uh, this one just getting more into the sort of professional portraits. Uh, you know, Capturing an image of essentially this fisherman, basically. Uh, and it's just another example of the calotype. Using the negative. So in a way, the Daguerre, not always the best. Bayard's direct bleach positive, much clearer image, same as sort of the perfecting a little bit of the chemistry with the calotype, get a little bit more of a clearer image, um, much better contrast. You could kind of pick this photo apart on how better it is than the Daguerre, but again, Daguerre was just better marketed. And so Frederick Scott Archer, uh, he comes up with the ambrotype. So again, we have another guy bringing this new process, which is better, but Essentially, he comes up with this process, his formula for the emulsion and all of that. Um, it's great. It's wonderful. You can get better image quality. But sort of once people got a hold of it, he essentially, failed to copyright or get a patent. So other people started to steal his chemistry. He tried to sort of fight for it, but ultimately, big money wins, and unfortunately, Archer kind of dies penniless. So sort of the harsh ruthlessness of it all. So here we have, a couple examples of the ambrotype. It's much better clarity, much better contrast. The Daguerre, there's a lot more sort of grayish. There's not as much contrast. Contrast, of course, is the separation between lights and darks. How many variations of grays can there be? So in some ways, you want that better contrast so that your black areas will be nice, rich black areas. Your white areas will be white. Whereas some of the Daguerre photographs, it's kind of, they get a little grayish. There's not as much separation. Uh, with There's not as good of contrast. So with the photography coming in, like I said, photography becomes popular. It becomes one of the hottest things to have. So also same point, also the same point in history where you start to get uh, galleries, art galleries. In this case, photo gallery, so that you can see different photos that the photographer took. If you want to have your own photograph, or if same time you want to buy a photograph of someone. Much like if you're wanting a picture of President Lincoln to hang in your home. So Nadar, he's kind of an interesting fellow. He kind of starts to take and push photography in new and different directions. He uh, he starts to get all these ideas. This is this wonderful tool. There's so much wonderful things that can be done with this. So let's really start pushing what can be done with photography. So one of the first things, because sort of Nadar's popularity, and at the same time uh, the notoriety and all that he's getting, he's bringing to it. When we get to his studio, as we have the first Impressionist painting exhibition. So in the art world in general, the Parisian art world, everything going on in Paris, we have the Impressionist painters. Uh, they decide to take matters in their own hand because essentially, they're these rejected artists. They're hated by the establishment. They feel that their art is it's of the now, it's of the right now, it's the here and now. This art should be shared. This art should be seen by the public. And who are you to say our artwork is not good enough? So they have their own show. So they decide to, they pick Nadar's uh, his studio already, because of his sort of popularity that he has. So it kind of goes hand in hand to help sort of show off their show where they're, like I said, they're challenging the establishment. So they want to have a well-known, reputable place to have their first showing. And so while today we have drones and all kinds of other fancy high-tech technology to take photographs from the air, uh, here we have Daumier's his take on Nadar, photographing, taking photography to new heights, so that Nadar would, get up in a hot air balloon, because that was, high tech at the time, so that, he could get up there, stabilize the balloon, and take his photographs from up in the air. Like I said, he once he figured out there's all this great stuff you could do with the photographs, let's start to push it. Let's start to do things a little different. I want my photographs to be different. So photographing from the air, that's a start. Uh, of course, as I was mentioning before, chemistry and all this stuff is getting much better, shorter exposure times, more portable type cameras being made. So, a lot sort of going into making this possible. So here is one of Nadar's aerial photos. There the Arc de Triomphe up there at the end of the Champs-Élysées. So they're sort of at the top of the photo. You can see the triumphal arch, built by Napoleon. Uh, you know, this aerial view. Before an aerial view, you'd have to, just get up on top of the hill or on top of a building, but then you're still kind of limited. Now, getting up there in a balloon, you can get this big panoramic type image of, in this case, the city of Paris. And part of that, the first barricade, uh, although this is more of kind of a simple sawhorse to some, but it's basically a way to start to simple portable structure that you can put up, move around. In this case, he'd put these around where he was setting up his hot air balloon so no one would mess with the ropes and things like that. An artificial light. So Nadar basically inventing a flash. So here we have uh, a photograph he took down in the catacombs under Paris, where the only real light you would have down there would be, the candle lights, or this point in time that might have had gas lamps running through there. But essentially, you have to rely on artificial light, and the exposure time, the amount of light you need for the photographs. Simple candle light or torch light or gas lamp is not going to produce enough light. So Nadar basically kind of comes up with these different sort of concoctions to create enough, big flash of light in order to take the photograph. And another sort of step is the first photo interview. So that you have basically just having a transcript of a conversation. How sort of thrilling is that? Now that we have this way to visually record things sort of instantly, we can get the reactions of these two people having this conversation. What is their facial expression while someone is saying something? So Nadar, with his interview with Chevreul, uh, you can see sort of the what's going on. And in some ways, the way movies are filmed, having multiple cameras set up to record dialogue between two people, kind of the same thing. Where Nadar has a couple of cameras set up so that during the interview he can have an assistant take the photos. Yeah. And then putting the photos together with sort of a transcript of their dialogue. And again, Nadar, all over the place. So, medical photography, again, this idea of a teaching tool, like the other photo of the operation room. We have this capability to uh, capture images. Um, so this says here, the instant understanding, so that we can see the photographs and understand it instantly. So here being, a portrait of Nadar, uh, and some of the portraits he gets into. So Sandra Bernhardt, in her role, actress. So her portraying the the person she is in the theatrical play that you know so that dressing up in costume, taking on that person. So Nadar trying, taking the photograph of Marion de Rome and not necessarily Sarah Bernhardt. And Eugene Peloton, uh, again, think about that philosopher type, the deep, the thinker. um, who am I really? That really sort of becomes, like I said, the question for a lot of portraits. Who am I? How do I want to be remembered? Julie Margaret Cameron, she huge in the portrait photography, because like I was saying, she takes it in this direction to where it's not just sit down, look right at the camera, I'm going to take your picture, but who are you? You know, and like I was saying, the whole, that transcendentalism mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, that carries over, so that uh, this idea of nature, getting back to nature. So the, Tennyson, all the getting back to nature, rejecting materialism, uh, a whole lot sort of that would be going on, influencing Cameron to compose this photograph. So again, sort of the her take on photographing an actor, portraying Henry VIII, sort of wanting more of this setting, different natural setting, essentially. Uh, so again, you're putting this setting, you're putting this environment, you're adding more than just a backdrop. And what one of the other things often, are who were you again, who were you photographing? Who was this? Um, and that, like I said, that becomes sort of what Cameron is trying to go after. She's not just going after a photograph of a person. She's trying to photograph the person. So that would be the difference, a photograph of someone or photographing someone. So, it's kind of a big philosophical debate in a way. So at the same time, being a female photographer, other female artists at the same time, they bring something different to the table, the way they want to portray and show people. Um, often it's referred to as they're showing the sort of softer, nurturing side that we typically don't see or that we don't get because of masculine male domination of things. So here we have the Cameron versus the Nadar. So again, the Nadar is very sort of straightforward. Put on your costume, sit down, look at the camera. Compared to the Cameron, where it's like, all right, be yourself, be who you are. Um, it's not necessarily as this sort of forced pose. You know, Again, the passing of Arthur and the Cameron, the whole Arthurian legend, Arthurian tales, the black background, really get into a lot of ideas on the image that she's trying to create with it, whereas Nadar again just sort of straightforward. Granted, uh, Peloton's not looking directly at the camera, like the last one we just saw. He's kind of looking off, a little more philosopher type, but again, which one seems a little more like this kind of forced and staged pose? Which one seems a little more lost in thought? And so uh, another thing that comes into being, kind of like the photo interview is, capturing motion, sort of capturing the action. So the carte de vista would be, essentially the single card showing sort of the different poses. What are all the different poses that can be done? What are the so that you have specific cameras where it basically has like the multiple picture frames within one big frame, so that it moves along. You're able to capture all these different poses one after another, basically. Then you cut that up, and then you have your uh, different photographs. So again, it's sort of technology advancing along with it. So that is it for the lecture series on portraits. Next, we'll begin to look at more of photography as an art form.